Hello, Accounting Superstars. This is Professor Don Bush from the Accounting Superstar channel. So glad you're here. I've been a professor for about 30 years and a CPA for about that long, and I've got great ways to explain accounting. So welcome to today's lesson. Hey, here's a picture of where I teach. I teach at Regis University in Denver, Colorado, and it's a beautiful school, just lovely. There's a lot of beautiful flowers this time of year. It's like a big park, a lot of trees. It's a wonderful place. So if you're looking for a place to study accounting, it's a great place. So come on, I can meet you in person. So what we have here today is the quick ratio. Now, fortunately, the quick ratio is exactly like the current ratio, which with one little exception here, a little tiny exception. So the current ratio was the video that I did yesterday. It was current assets divided by current liabilities, and it's an indicator of the ability to pay your bills. And so the quick ratio is very similar. It's current assets except for inventory, and that's the only little exception here. So current assets except for inventory divided by current liabilities. So the quick ratio is like the current ratio, but it's a little bit more cautious. It's a little bit more careful. And so you might say, well, why do we need another ratio that does pretty much the same thing? Well, what it is suppose that maybe your inventory is damaged or maybe obsolete, or maybe you're selling things that people don't want anymore. Maybe you're selling old Justin Bieber CDs. Now, one thing that's funny is that I ask my students in class all the time, I ask them, okay, who's hot in music these days? And they'll tell me, and usually I don't know who it is. But sometimes I'll ask them, is Justin Bieber still the big thing in music? And everybody goes, oh no, we hate Justin Bieber. But one thing that's funny is that Justin Bieber is one of the highest selling, grossing music stars today, And so I just wonder who's buying his CDs. So, or people are not admitting to it. So anyways, the quick ratio, here's the formula, folks. There it is, the quick ratio. It's current assets without inventory divided by current liabilities. It's just that simple. It's an indicator of the ability to pay bills. And I have a special note here. I'm going to put it in bright red, so that way it's not that bright red. How about this bright red right there? Okay, so do not include inventory in current assets. So let's figure out the current ratio for the Sunset Sailboat Company. It's really easy, super easy. I'm going to split the screen so we can see two things at once. So what I have the financial statements for the Sunset Sailboat Company for the last 4 years. So we'll see how their current ratio has been trending. So to get the information for the current ratio, we have to go down to the balance sheet. So here we are. So the current rate the current assets are usually towards the top of the balance sheet. So things like cash, that's a current asset. So let me highlight that in a different color so it just stands out a bit. Accounts receivable, that's money that is owed to you or the company by your customers. And inventory, we're going to skip the inventory. So we'll include the short-term investments, because those short-term investments probably can be sold and into money or turned into money probably very rapidly. Now, in the event that the short-term investments can't be sold for whatever reason, don't include them. All right, let's just include things that we can either turn into cash or is cash already. So we'll include these things. So what we could do to figure out the current assets minus inventory, we could add up the cash, the accounts receivable, and the short-term investments. Or what we could do is just look at the total current assets and just subtract away the inventory. So either way, just don't include inventory. So here we are. Here's the total for the first year, $201,850. So there we go. Let's do that for the second year. Don't include inventory. $340,000. And the third year, not including inventory. I'm kind of emphasizing don't include inventory. $507,000. And for the fourth year, $473,000. Now, what we'll do is we'll look up the current liabilities. Now, current liabilities, roughly speaking, Those are liabilities that are due within a year. Now, there's a more technical definition to what is current and what isn't. But for now, let's just use that definition. It's easy to remember. So bills that are going to be due within the year. And so accounts payable, this is money owed to vendors. So we'll include that, and I'll highlight that. And taxes payable, Uncle Sam wants his money. He'll want his money within the year, certainly. And the short-term notes payable, these happen to be due within 1 year with the company. So for Sunset Sailboat Company, all we have to do is look at the total current liabilities. So there we are. So we'll take this 206,750 for the first year and we'll transfer it right up here. And we'll take 412 for the second year, transfer it right up there. 226 for the third year, there we are, and 420 for the fourth year. So for the quick ratio, here's what we get. We'll just divide here. 201,850 divided by 206,750, 0.98. Do the same thing. 340 divided by 412, 0.83. Third year, 507 divided by 226,000. There you go. And do the same thing for the fourth year too. So what does this quick ratio mean? And is this good or bad? Well, a rule of thumb, and it's a rough rule of thumb. It depends on the business. And in just a moment, you're going to find out a lot of businesses don't follow this rule of thumb at all, not even close. So, but a rule of thumb is that this ratio should be 1-to-1, or the number 1. So in other words here, this 0.98, that's a little less than 1-to-1. So a good way to read it is for every $1 of bills, the Sunset Sailboat Company has 98 cents of current assets, not including inventory, to pay those bills. All right, so I'll say it again. So for every $1 of bills, the Sunset Sailboat Company has 98 cents to pay those bills. So for the second year, Sunset Sailboat Company has 83 cents to pay those bills. So in other words here, for every $1 bills, Sunset Sailboat Company has 83 cents to pay those bills. And this is not including the inventory, of course. But in year 3, for every $1 bills, they have $2.24 to pay those bills. So their ability to pay their bills is quite a bit larger. And in the fourth year, for every $1 bills, they've got $1.13 to pay those bills. So things have gone back down to normal. If I was in management, I would want to know, well, what happened in the year 3? Why was this so different? It's really important to figure those things out. In fact, with all these ratios, don't ever take them at face value. You really have to dig into them and see. For instance, like this quick ratio of 0.98, that's really, really close to a 1-to-1 ratio. But if the Sunset Sailboat Company doesn't have a lot of cash and their accounts receivable is not collectible, that is, customers aren't paying them, that 0.98 is not that good. And for instance, for the third year, the same thing might be true, is that maybe they don't have a lot of cash, but maybe they have a whole lot of accounts receivables, and their customers are not paying them. So you got to look into this. Just don't take them at face value. Now, it's also good to compare it against competitors, if you can. So Captain Jack, his current ratio is 0.98, so it's pretty much the same. By the way, Captain Jack is a big competitor of the Sunset Sailboat Company. Well, it looks like his current ratio went down a little bit, and it's going down a little bit more, and down again. So if it were me, if I was in the management of Captain Jack's sailboats, I would want to look at this. Like, is this good or bad? What's going on here? Because a rough rule of thumb, here's my thumbs here, good rule of thumb is that the quick ratio should be 1-to-1, as a rule of thumb. So, is this bad? Maybe it isn't. I don't know. We have to look into it. So let's look into, well, what's this quick ratio all about? So let me scroll down here. So here are a couple of details. So the quick ratio is a liquidity ratio or solvency ratio. I've seen it listed as both, so I don't get too hung up on this. Liquidity means how quickly can you raise cash? How quickly can you turn things into cash? How quickly can you collect those receivables? How quickly can you sell that inventory? Solvency means can you pay your bills as your bills come due? So the two are very related. Number 2, indicates short-term ability to pay bills. All right, so that's what we've been talking about. So number 3, does not take composition of current assets into account. Like I was saying, that maybe the Sunset Sailboat Company has just a little bit of cash to pay their bills and a whole lot of accounts receivables in their current assets, but customers are not paying. This would not be a good situation. And number 4, does not indicate the amount of uncollectible receivables. So you got to look into that. Number 5, more conservative than the current ratio regarding the ability to pay bills. So the quick ratio, current ratio, they're practically the same thing, but the quick ratio is a little more careful, a little more cautious. And here are the current or the quick ratios. Here are the quick ratios for some common companies. I looked up the quick ratio for Walmart, and the quick ratio for Walmart is 0.49. And you might say, wow, that doesn't seem very good. For every $1 bills, Walmart only has 49 cents to pay those bills. Well, I got to tell you, Walmart's not going broke and they're doing fine. Walmart is a very big and powerful company, and it's got the power to dictate the terms of when they'll pay their vendors. And so Walmart is doing okay with a 0.49 quick ratio. It's really in a very good position. Southwest Airlines, their quick ratio is 1.96, so it's double the rule of thumb of 1-to-1. Maybe they've got to keep a higher quick ratio. Apple Computers, 1.32. I'm a little surprised that it's that high right there. So for every $1 bills that Apple Computer has, they've got $1.32 to pay those bills. And Coors has a quick ratio of just 0.45. And you might say, oh, that's horrible. That's worse than Walmart. For every $1 bills that Coors has, they've got 45 cents to pay those bills. And you might think, oh, that's horrible. They only have 45 cents to pay their bills. That's awful. That is, for every $1 bills, they've got 45 cents to pay those bills. That's what it indicates. But Coors, like Walmart, is in a very stable industry. You think about it, when times are good, people drink beer. When times are bad, people drink beer. So very stable. And Coors might be in a position to where they can dictate terms to vendors and so anyways, so as you can see, this all these companies, Walmart, Southwest, Apple, they're very successful companies. They're all doing well, and their quick ratios vary quite a bit. So you got to look into these ratios. Look into them more deeply than you might think. Don't take them at face value ever. You got to look into them. So that means you got to understand what they're trying to say. Well, I hope you liked this lesson, folks. And if you did, hit that like button and the subscribe button. That way I'll know that you like the videos and I'll make more for you. Also, YouTube will know you like the videos and they'll send more of these videos your way. Also, check out accountingsuperstars.com. You can find all these videos listed by topic, so it'll be easier for you to find what you're looking for. So until next time, over and out.